One Carnaby Street, on your feet, let's dance the music. West One Carnaby Street, it's a hit, come on, let's dance the music.
On the line right now we have Carl Leighton Pope, the producer and creator of Carnaby Street. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Oh, you sound lovely and clear, Carl. How are you?
Great.
Lovely chatting to you. I'm a big 60s music fan, as I'm sure you are, but what was the inspiration behind this magnificent show, Carnaby Street?
Well, I think exactly that. I was 1964, I was 18 years old. I was living in Soho. My dad had a pub there. I was an unemployed actor. My mum fed me, and I worked 5 nights a week in the Marquee Club with The Who and with the Yardbirds, with all those great bands at the time. And I bought my clothes in Carnaby Street on Saturday morning. I was a mod. I had a scooter. I fought on the beaches. I did everything that I should have done in 1964, and was an exciting time in my life. And I just thought, you know, sometimes you just need to do something about it. And that's why I wrote Carnaby Street, and that's why I'm producing it. I'm very excited about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Carnaby Street, obviously not in the 60s. I'm a little bit younger, I have to admit. No, you might believe me, you might not. And even now, it buzzes of sort of fashion and chic. What was it really like back in the 60s? What was it really like? I mean, you mentioned you've met quite a few of the, well, huge bands, The Who, etc. What was it like? I mean, what was the vibe like from that time?
Well, the stupidest part about Carnaby Street was that I lived 2 streets away in Dean Street, and I could have done my shopping any day of the week. But Saturday morning was Carnaby Street morning. And when you showed up, in those days, now it's a walking precinct. In those days, you could drive through Carnaby Street, and the Mini that was parked outside Lord John would be Paul McCartney buying, because you could get tab collar shirts and Italian trousers in Lord John, so that's where he would be. You would, most weekends, you'd walk into either Mooney or Roger Daltrey walking down the street, or the Kinks would be there, Ray Davies and his brother, or you just run into Mick Jagger with always with a girl on his arm, and people were just around. And but you have to understand, you're talking about superstars today. In 1964, they were all in start-up bands. I mean, obviously they were known bands, but nobody had, phones. They never had cameras on their phones, so nobody bothered anybody. You could say, like, you saw Mick Jagger, say, "Hey Mick, how are you?" He'd go, "Yeah, I'm all right. How you doing?" He'd go, "Great," and you just kind of walk on, So it was very crowded. A lot of people who weren't necessarily shopping were just hanging and just looking good. It was the fashion centre of exactly what was going on during that era. Carnaby Street was amazing.
Well, it was the centre of music, fashion, everything, wasn't it? Absolutely brilliant. I love the way you said Mooney and stuff like that. You were obviously very close to these people, and like you said, I think it was just the vibe of the day. So, going on, what were your favourite memories of the 60s, and who are your favourite artists or songs? Obviously, you know a lot of these people, so I suppose it's quite a montage of stuff that you actually like.
Well, I think you have to be careful in the music business. I've been in it obviously all my life, and when you say you know people, I know a lot of people to say hello to, and that's exactly what the music business was in those days. I remember the first time I saw the Moody Blues and Denny Lane saying "Go Now," I nearly fell over. It was that good. And the first time I heard "Keep on Running" and Spencer Davis Group and Stevie Winwood was so young, and we were just in the club. When the first night the Who played in the Marquee Club, there were 35 people in the club, and it held 1,000 people. We just sat on the floor and watched them, and within a month later, you couldn't get in through the door. I mean, this was an explosion that was happening that nobody really understood what it was, and I think that kind of made it exactly what the 60s was, in how it resonated right through the 20th century. And even today, I mean, the Rolling Stones are playing 2 nights in Hyde Park in the summer, the biggest band in the world, and they're still doing it, and so is Paul McCartney, and so I think that something happened in the 60s, certainly to me, where I suddenly realized that this was life-changing. I wrote a couple of lines in the musical that said, "My father looked like my grandfather, but he never looked like me." And I've got pictures of my dad and my granddad, and they look exactly the same.
Yes.
But I never looked like that, and was never going to. The whole world in the 50s changed, and I don't know why, and nobody can tell me why, but something happened. There was it wasn't a revolution, because that's the wrong word, but there was a change of life where we started to ask questions, where your mum would come home and say, "What did the doctor say?" "I'll take 2 of these and lie down." So I was, "What are they?" "Oh, I don't know." He just gave him, we asked, what are you doing? What's going on? What's happening with the world? And suddenly all of these factions grew out of our thirst for knowledge. And you have to also remember that the clubs in the West End weren't licensed. The Marquee, you couldn't buy a drink. The Flamingo, Georgie Fame, the Mod Club, the scene in Ham Yard where the Action played, you couldn't buy alcohol. So wasn't alcohol driven. This was we were just out all having a good time, you know. And that was really the key to the whole thing, to be honest with you. That was why it was so exciting. Was because, you know, you take a handful of pills on a Friday night, and it wasn't because we were drug addicts.
Oops.
It's just that we wanted to stay awake all weekend and not miss anything.
Absolutely.
You know, didn't want to miss anything. You know?
I mean, the 60s came along at the right time, didn't it? Because we just come out of the war, and there was rationing still going on, and places were still derelict, and we were still recovering, and then bang, the 60s came along, and it just lifted the whole mood of the country, didn't it, really?
But you know why? Because the biggest word of the 60s was optimism. We were totally optimistic about going forward. You could get a job anywhere. You could walk out a job on a Friday, get a job on a Monday easily. The money that you had in your pocket was the money that you had. I'm sorry to keep going back to Carnaby Street, but I wrote a line in Carnaby Street, which is a truism. And my dad always used to say to me, when all the money's gone, son, just go out and get some more. And what he was really saying was that I didn't have a bank account, I didn't have a credit card, I didn't have a checkbook, I didn't have anything. What I had was a pound note in my pocket, or 10-bob note, or whatever it was. And when that 10-bob note was gone, I had to get another 10-bob note from somewhere. So that's how we lived our lives. And we never thought about investments or debt, or we never thought about anything like that. All we thought about was getting from a Monday morning to a Friday night, so that, you know, that weekend thing just kind of hit you. And we went out and just had a great time, you know.
I mean, it was a different world back then, wasn't it? It really, really was a different world. I mean, I feel sorry for the youngsters of today, not because I'm old and, you know, I'm from a different generation, but there just definitely isn't that excitement around that there was in the 60s, that, like, say, that optimism. I mean, now you can't leave a job on a Friday and get a job on a Monday.
That's right.
It doesn't happen anymore, you know. And, you know, talking to you and what I know about the show and looking into it, I've got a real buzz. And I'm sitting here actually, don't laugh, I'm actually trembling while I'm talking to you, because it's that exciting. It really, really is.
Oh, thank you for that, because I was excited enough to fund all of this and to go after it and to totally commit my business to this musical. And you know, listen, I'm very, very fortunate. I don't know whether you know, but I'm the agent for Michael Buble. I'm the agent for Bryan Adams. I have some really, really fabulous clients and who I absolutely adore, and I've been with both of them right from the beginning of their career. And it's a very exciting position. And in my tenure, I represented Dire Straits, The Simple Minds, and Van Morrison, and just loads and loads of great bands. And I've had a sensational career in the music business. But it comes a time when, you know, you're sort of thinking, well, should you write the book or what? And you think, no, nobody's going to read a book about my life. Why would they? And then the musical came up, and I thought, wait a minute, I can inject all of those great memories, all the characters that I met during that time, I can put them into the musical, and that will be my book. That will be my statement, if you like. Or,
well, the first thing is, I think what you just said about the inject into the musical, I think you've certainly done that. And like you say, people don't want to wade through books. They want to sit there and be entertained and be thrilled. And I think your life and your experiences certainly comes through on the stage show.
Thank you.
And the second thing is, with all your contacts with all these huge bands, you've got a new best friend now in me. I'm always looking for tickets, but I can never get them.
You're on the list, pal. Call me whenever you like.
Oh,
You'll be very welcome.
That is really sweet. Right, we'll play a record and we'll come back and chat a little bit more. Is that okay with you?
No, I'm here.
Okay,
Thank you.
We'll play a record I know you like, the wonderful Sandy Shaw. There's always something there to remind
me. Absolutely.
Excellent.
I walk along Street on your feet. Let's dance the music. West 1 Carnaby Street. It's a hit. Come on, let's dance the music.
Well, on the phone, I've got Carnaby Street's creator, Carl Leighton Pope. And we're having a fabulous chat, aren't we, Carl?
Yeah, we're having fun, yeah. Actually, I see Sandy Shaw from time to time in the clubs in London. She's smashing.
Does she wear shoes now?
I think I'm almost sure she does, yeah.
Yeah, she's a lovely, lovely lady.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet Dusty Springfield, as a matter of interest?
No, sadly I didn't, but obviously I'm very aware of the songs of Burt Bacharach stuff that she did, and I was a huge, huge fan, and I think there are probably at least 2, maybe even 3 Dusty songs in the show, you know. I mean, I just think she was a giant at that time, and her biographies and autobiographies are really, really interesting read, really interesting.
Yes, really good. As you said earlier on, you said you looked after some tours of some of the biggest stars in the world. Although they're from a different era, did they inspire you in writing the show in any way, even though they're a different genre of music? Or
no, not really. I think it was a time, certainly in the 70s, when I was wondering kind of where I was going with the music business. I wasn't sure whether I started managing a little Welsh band called Sassafras in the early 70s, 71. I thought I was going to be a manager. And then in 77, 76, I became, I toured America a couple of times. Then I found a band called The Motors, and we're on Virgin. And then I signed Patti Smith, who had that Bruce Springsteen hit, Because the Night. And wonderful. I thought, I'll be an agent. And I was a bit lost, really. So, and then obviously Dire Straits we found right at the very beginning, before the first record, which I always thought was a sensational record. I thought that the first Dire Straits record that Muff Winwood produced was amazing. And I represented Simple Minds at that time. We just come down from Scotland. And I went a bit American mad during that late 70s period and represented Journey, Styx, REO Speedwagon, Molly Hatchet, Loverboy, Huey Lewis and the News. So I've been a bit sort of American mad. And then I found Canada. Yes. And just, and just thought, there's some, and I spent a lot of time in Canada and just thought there's some great music here. So yes. That's where I met Bryan Adams in the early 80s, and obviously where Michael Buble comes from.
Brilliant. Must have a great autograph book, you. Must have a fantastic collection of photographs, autographs. I'll look out for you on eBay. You said earlier on that you was a cloakroom assistant or attendant at the Marquee Club, which was a great place because it was a nice location to Carnaby Street. Did you feel that it gave you a bit of a fly on the wall? Was there things that you might have missed had you not had the opportunity to work and start there?
No, I just, I got a part-time job. A guy phoned me up and said, "Do you want to?" He said he'd got this job at the Marquee Club, and the club closed at 11, and he couldn't get home in time. And I lived in when I first joined the Marquee Club, I was living in Swiss Cottage, and I could have walked home. So I just said, "No, I'll do it." And it was like £1 a night, work in the cloakroom or work on the front door. And I remember the first night I was there, I was helping a guy fix some lights. I didn't even know who he was, and I was put the lights up, and guy went, "No, thanks very much." I went, "That's all right." So you're in the cloakroom. I went, "Okay." So about halfway through the evening, I popped out the cloakroom to see who was playing, and the guy who was helping with the lights was Long John Baldry, and Rod Stewart was on stage singing with him, and I didn't even know Rod Stewart was, and I thought, this is great, and the blues music was just amazing, and so it was a bit strange. I remember Chris Dreyer, who was the rhythm guitarist of the Yardbirds, he came around the cloakroom one night and he said, "What do you think?" He said, "Do you think, how do we sound? Do you think we're all right?" And it's really great, and we all had those moments with all these great musicians, and Eric Clapton was in the band then, obviously. So, there was that period was that was really the kind of the juice. When I was in the middle of all of that stuff, I thought, wait a minute, this is what you're going to do. This is your career path. What do you?
That's brilliant. You sound like you've really enjoyed your career. I've got to say, it comes over marvellously, and once again, in an autobiographical way in the show as well. How did the launch go today? I noticed that you sent a branded taxi to New Street in Birmingham today. How did that all go?
No, we didn't today. We've moved it to Monday because there were a couple of things didn't work out. So, which is why I'm doing the phoners today. We bought a London taxi and we had it completely liveried as the Carnaby Street cab and we have our flash mob. We have our 5 girls who jump out and dance to Twist and Shout, and we've taken it all over the country, and people absolutely love it. Yes. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm really, really tempted to buy another one because it's so much fun. And with a couple of young guys who are different drivers for us, and they carry merchandise around, they take people to interviews, they do all that stuff. It's been a real fun vehicle to have a London taxi turn up at a radio station. It's kind of cool, Yeah,
it is very good. So it's on in the Alexandra Theatre in Birmingham, and I just want to know, next week is the week it was. Obviously, we'll give ticket information on our website and to the listeners in a few moments.
Thank you.
Anytime. Musical theatre has always been a passion for you?
Theatre in general, I think, is a passion. I'm a great believer in what Mamma Mia did. And interestingly enough, was actually changed it enough for me to become even more excited about it than I was before. In that, I believe that people don't go to watch musicals anymore. I think people go because they want to be in them. And I think that if you go to Dreamboats or you go to, any Dirty Dancing, any of the touring musicals out there, people are in the audience and they want to get up and they want to dance, they want to have some fun, and they want to be Petula Clark going downtown and forgetting their troubles and forgetting their cares. I think it's great, and that's the way that music musicals. I think not necessarily. Obviously, there's a lot of serious stuff in the West End, and it's doing very well, and so it should. And the Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff is just extraordinary and amazingly well staged. But I think for the fun touring musicals, you should be able to just have a great night out.
Are you planning on coming to Birmingham next week for the launch?
I am indeed, yes, of course. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Before you go, I will have a chat with you off air and see what day you're going. I'll come down and meet you and shake your hand.
Oh, that would be fantastic. That would really, really be good.
It will be. I'll have a chat with you in a few seconds' time. But thank you very much indeed for the interview on air for our listeners, Carl. Really, really insightful. And I'll finish this interview with a record I know you'll love, Mooney and His Mates.